Okay, we're back live from PEAC. We apologize for the interruption we had some technical problems earlier. I introduced our two speaker. We are live today for our webinar on reimagining the teacher and the learner in the time of COVID-19, a talk for K-3 educators. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for staying with us. Okay, I'd like to call now our first speaker, Teacher Nong, for her presentation. Are you ready, Teacher Nong?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay, so again, good morning, everyone. And thank you for standing by. So now we start with our session this morning. I cannot see the slides. Are the slides already shown? Okay. Are the slides there?
Butch, do we have the slides of Teacher Nong?
Or
Teacher Nong, are you able to share your screen share your slides?
Let me try that, okay?
Okay, let's try that one.
You have to enable me to do that. It says, okay.
All right.
Is that my slide?
Go. Yes, the slide. That's the slide.
Mine are Butch's. Okay. So this is our session for today. So let's move to the next slide. Can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, so today we want to reimagine. I just have a question. Are those my slides? There, okay. So today we will reimagine. Di ba po masarap mangarap, no? So we want to imagine. When we do imagine, we create a picture, we visualize, we envision. But for today, we will not just imagine. In the next slide, we will try to go beyond imagining. So can we move to the next slide, please? We are all familiar with what you see, with the diagram you see on the screen. Next slide, please. Can we move to the next slide, please? There, okay. You're all familiar with this, right? Teachers are very familiar with this. This is the paradigm we work with. At the can we move one slide back first? Okay. So we're very familiar with the school and the home and the learner, and we know that there has to be interaction, and the bigger the learner is at the heart of our instructional delivery. Without the learner, we will not be existing. Schools are curriculum designers. We deliver instruction, and we hope for the support of the home. Our current paradigms about all these three important aspects no longer work. The pre-COVID frameworks that we have. Because we have another layer, we're into the pandemic. That's why we want to reimagine the teacher and the learner in this new context. Okay, so before I give you an overview of the session, I'm sure that you all have questions about how to do your roles. We are all shaken from our comfort zones, and many of us, our natural reaction is to resist. And at some point, we know that we could no longer resist. We have to address the challenges. So can we just pause for like a few seconds? And I'd like you to think of your very pressing questions as teachers, as school administrators in this pandemic. Ano-ano kaya yung kailangan yung masagutan para magawa nyo ng maayos yung inyong trabaho bilang mga guro. Next slide, please. I believe that we should not just survive this pandemic, but we have to thrive. And in order to thrive, we have to reimagine the teacher and the learner as we get an expanded paradigm. We'd like to go through the following topics for this session today. We'd like to look into the school and home landscapes. What are our learner realities? The evolving role of teachers, parents, and students, necessary curriculum change, and finally, we will discuss learning delivery possibilities and look for ways that would work for you. Okay. As we go to the next slide, at the end of today's session, we hope that we can richly imagine a range of responses to your many questions, but that is in consideration of the bigger picture of the school, the home, and the teacher. So I will now start with the school landscape. I'm sure you're very familiar with this, but let's just dig deeper and look further into our realities. Okay. In the next slide, you will see that at the top of it, what's indicated there is level of knowledge, skills, and attitude. We all come with particular levels of knowledge, skills, and attitude. But we know that whatever level we are in these during pre-COVID times will no longer work. Sure, the content would be the same of what we want to deliver. We are the experts in content. The whats, we know the hows, we know how to be effective teachers, how to deliver that. But we know that we have to transform all of this into a form that would be workable during these times when we will not be mostly conducting face-to-face classes. So that is, I believe, one of your bigger questions a while ago. How will I be able to transform all this into formats? There are very many formats. I'd also like to discuss a bit about attitude. As I mentioned a while ago, I am very sure that initially, okay, lahat po tayo, we were resisting this, even I, okay? When shaken from our comfort zones, we sometimes freeze and resist. But the attitude that I would invite you to take at this point is let us befriend our enemy. Okay, only if we befriend our enemy can we be more open-minded. I also would like to say that it is fine not to know. It is fine not to know and to admit that we know, but it is not fine to remain there not knowing. We have to be to get over our fear of not knowing. Let me share you an example. With this turn of events, all my classes also were suddenly, they had to shift. And I wasn't new to this Zoom meeting that we're having. Okay, I was not familiar with this. And then finally, I have to host one as in charge of one committee. So I have to be brave and humble to ask a younger colleague of mine how to do it. So it's fine not to know, but we have to go beyond the not knowing. Okay, and we also have to look into the availability of resources and equipment in our school setups, but also for our individual teachers. How can we work with the current available equipment that we have? Does everyone have a computer, a laptop? Because I believe that most of the work we'll be doing now would be computer-based. So what would be our plans about that? Resources. We have, private schools would have a lot of resources, but now some of these would have to be transformed into another format. So we have to be ready to do that. But I know that we are not sure yet as to what platform will be delivering instruction. I'd like to talk also about workspaces because I believe that this is important. Whether you're going back to your school or working from home, it's very important that we acknowledge that our workspace either assists us to deliver instruction effectively, or it stresses us. For those going back to their school setups, because there's very low risk of the pandemic in their places, I think that would be a good setup, because that separates your other roles when you're in your work in your school. But for many of us, I'm very sure that we have to find a workspace in our own homes, and that is not going to be very easy. Even for me right now, I invaded the room of my daughter because this is the only place where the signal is good, and that can be quite stressful. So just take a look at the next slide and see how this really affects us. This working from home is really driving some people nuts. Of course, I'd like us to see also that there's a brighter side to it. Working from home doesn't mean I have to dress up. It means I don't have to work my way through traffic. But still, when one is working from home, we know that multiple roles are right there. They're right on our faces. So it's very, very challenging to manage working from home, even the schedule. It is important that we have a schedule, that we also set a schedule, so that would give us the regularity and the security that things will be going on, that for our daily for our rather events for the day. Okay, so another reality in our school landscape that we have to address, if you look at the next slide, is our well-being. The World Health Organization actually noted that one of the urgent things we need to address after the pandemic, or rather during this pandemic, is mental health issues. They see evidence that this is rising. And I'm sure with all the psychological stress that we are experiencing, we have to look after our own well-being. And by well-being, it's everything. Okay, intellectual, physical, we need to be moving, emotional, okay, all of this. And how do we do that? Okay, management skills. How do we manage? How do we cope? Maganda sa atin, we have a support system. The school should also take into account how teachers are supported. I know that we're trying to work double time at this point before the school year starts to get everything ready. But I believe that what would pull us through here is our very own virtues as Filipinos, which would be bayanihan. Working together to whatever we plan, working together and supporting each other. Then we have resilience. Basta importante, we are supported and we inform others about our well-being. Okay, another reality in the school is collaboration with families. And we have been doing this prior to COVID. But now we know that it's going to take a much deeper action. We have to make them feel secure. Okay, how will they feel secure in this pandemic? Some parents, some families opt for homeschooling. But for those who decide to have their students or their kids stay, so anong kailangan natin gawin? So, kailangan natin maparamdam sa kanila ano ang matutulong natin. Okay? At napakalaki nung bahagi na yon dahil hindi na siya katulad dati. No? Dati, minimal support lang ang kailangan natin mula sa mga magulang. Ngayon, hindi. And we will see that later in the evolving roles. So as early as now, we have to make them families, the home's experience, we're in this together. So dapat maramdaman lang nila. Kahit yung role nila ay mas lalapad at mas lalawak, kailangan nilang makita na mayroong susuporta sa kanila mula sa eskwela. Okay, so that would be the school landscape. Let me now move on to the family landscape, to the homes. Okay, So parents' work conditions, the thing with this pandemic is that it's always changing. Um, During the lockdown, it's different. Now with increased mobility, it's also different. So parents' work conditions were really or are really truly affected. We have retrenchment. We have those who did not get pay for certain periods of time, and of course, this will impact on their finances and what would be their priorities in terms of having their kids go to school. Okay, and now with the increased mobility, we know that some parents would be leaving the house, and that would provide more psychological stress because of the risk of getting COVID. And there are also parents who are now staying at home because there's no more work to get back to. All of these in the bigger system would all affect the child. Okay, now teacher family relations have drastically changed and it's still evolving. From the lockdown, we're so stuck together. Okay, we have no choice. So it's a great time for bonding. Okay, so that's good in a way, but also there's also the overlapping of role demands here. Um, a lot of roles for parents to assume if they were working from home or if they are working from home now. So while at home, okay, some parents, some teachers among you are experiencing this. Uh, while doing my job as a teacher, I have my kids here at home because they're not at in school. There's no school, and so many multiple things asking for my attention. And in the next slide, you will see that while we try to focus on the essentials, sometimes you realize that there's just too much of each other. Okay, and we have to acknowledge that this is the reality in homes, and perhaps that's how adults also react to children. They have too much of each other because kids no longer stand what's going on. And in the next slide, you will see some of the things that happened. Okay, so you can see there the provision of rich learning experiences, or we can just say just experiences for the child during the lockdown. Okay, so you can see how truly stressful and exhausting this is for parents. And I would say that this would also be the picture now because children or their kids will not be going back to school physically. Okay. In the next slide, you will see more aspects of the home landscape. In this COVID times, learner support will be indeed changing. The teacher is not physically there. We're not physically there. Like in the classroom, feedback is very quick. We know when to assist further. We know when to provide more experiences. But in this COVID times, there would be minimal face-to-face. So by virtue of the nature of our young learners, ano po ba ang kanilang katangian? They are not autonomous. They are not independent learners. So, kailangan may susuporta sa bahay. With the back to work, so can you imagine the picture? It used to be that parents would go to work, drop off their kids, and they have their lives. They see each other in the evening or in the afternoon. But now, maiiwan ng bata sa bahay. Okay? So, napakahalaga na may susuporta sa bata kasi hindi pa, they are emergent. I'm now talking about the learner. Some of them are emergent readers and learners. So, hindi sila nakakabasa. So, kung ano man ang kailangan nating ipadala sa kanila para matuto sila, kailangan lang ng merong isang adult na tututok sa bata. Okay, so we also have knowledge, skills, and attitude to effectively support the learner. Tayo po'y matagal nag-aral bilang guro. Okay? ang mga magulang na susuporta sa mga anak nila ay hindi ganun kalalim ang kaalaman. So yung collaboration na pinag-usapan natin kanina, collaboration of the school with families, I think this is where the window is. How do we assist them so that they would understand how to support in the materials, resources that we will be creating or transforming? They need to be guided step by step, what they have to do, okay? And in trying to collaborate as early as possible with them, we want them to have a shift of attitude, okay? That alam naman nila we are partners, but here this is so challenged. I remember there's this story of a mother with 4 children, and with the COVID, suddenly it's all to be done at home. And then she was really getting crazy with 4 kids to monitor. At ang sabi niya, kailan ba ito matatapos? Kailan matatapos? Alam natin, hindi siya matatapos. Okay, so also, how can they support if resources and equipment are not readily available? Let's look at families. Not each one in the family would have their own computer. Madalas dyan, nag-share sila, no? So, imagine the picture. So, try to reimagine a family with a number of kids. Sabihin na natin 2 lang. Ilan silang magte-take, how many of them will take turns using that computer? If the mode is using the computer, okay? And resources would be coming from us generally, but that doesn't mean that they cannot explore other resources if it's there on their fingertips, okay? So there. Again, as I have mentioned, all of these would be affecting their well-being. At maganda na kapag tutulungan natin sila, when we try to collaborate with them, let's not just look at the academic side of things. Let's look also into how we can assist them so that they can manage their well-being and they would be more effective supporters of learning at home. So let's now go to the learner. What's the reality of the learner? Okay, there's so much time. There's just so much time at home unless parents are able to provide rich learning experiences for them. Okay, but if there's no avenue for that, ayan po ang nangyayari. Talagang mangungulit sila ng mangungulit, okay, because there's not much to do. There's limited space. We know they can't go out as before. They can't go to playgrounds. So the limited space in the home is something that we have to work with. I'd like to talk about nature of interactions. Kasi lahat naman ng tao, we find, all of us, no? Whether the learner, whether adults, we find joy, we find delight in social interactions, which is dramatically different. What COVID is reinforcing is really isolation. And this is not ideal and working well, but we cannot do much. So how do you think? Think about that. How can we make sure that we are experienced by our learners, by our parents? Ano kayang pwede natin gawin? No? And because there cannot be face-to-face activities, but there would be other options. And I think Annie will be showing one later. Okay, so there. So another reality of the learner is the learning space. Like adults, they may have their tables at home, but take note that if there are a lot of parents working at home, this would be intersecting learning spaces, workspaces, sharing computer, sharing gadgets, all of that. There has to be a way of properly organizing that. Also, learners would need a routine at home. They need a schedule like what we do in the classroom that would help them feel secure that this is a day for my Mondays to Fridays are learning days, and this is my schedule. Okay, and then we have there available support. Kailangan talaga, hindi pwedeng walang isang adult na titingin sa bata. At kailangan nating malaman ano ang realidad nila. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, what this is saying is the design of learning experiences should match a child's real and current contexts while appropriately addressing development in all domains. So the question here that comes to mind is, so how do we match? Siyempre, mamamatch lang po natin yan kung alam natin ang konteksto nila. Therefore, we need to really investigate. So how do we investigate? We have to find out what are their conditions at home. Who are the adults staying with the child? Who are possible supervisors of learning at home? We need to find out available resources and gadgets. How many are sharing these gadgets? Also, ang nakikita kong maganda kasi dito, syempre kilala natin ang mga estudyante natin. We know our learner. Unfortunately, for this school year, there will be a different set of teachers for the learners, right? I wonder how many schools would be having the same teachers for the same batch of learners. But the advantage is that I know my learner. Alam ko sino pa ang hindi nagbabasa. Alam ko sino ang nangangailangan ng moderate na gabay. At sino ang kaya kong pabayaan kasi mataas na ang kapabilidad niya. So lahat ito ay papasok. Dahil paano tayo magpapadala ng gawain na hindi naman akma sa kakayahan nila? Okay, bagamat may susuporta sa kanila, kailangan pa rin match talaga yan. Kaya nakalagay dyan, it should match a child's real and current context. So yung mga binanggit natin kanina, maganda maimbestigahan natin through surveys, through chats with parents, and it's going to be a big work, but it's going to give us strategic ways of planning what would be feasible and what would not be feasible. Okay, so in the next slide, you will see the kinds of experiences that young learners welcome. Okay, sinabi natin kanina, konteksto ay mahalaga. That's why we talk about landscapes and realities. So contextually relevant. Ayon sa alam nila. So Annie I don't like to cover Annie's talk later, but she will be exploring other forms or varied forms of platforms. I just want us to remember here that this is one of the most challenging to address, contextually relevant, because in a class of 25 to 40 students, they would have their own contexts. And the implication of that is we will be designing diverse learning experiences. It's not just a one-size-fits-all thing. Okay, meaningful. What's meaningful for K-3 learners? We have to know to go back to their characteristics. When we transform the content, for example, into something on print format that would be supervised by adults at home, let's try to think of what would be a realistic chunk or amount that they can manage. Alam naman natin, short attention span sila. Okay? So, ang meaningful sa kanila, yung kamatch lang ng kaya nila. Okay? What would also be meaningful would be related to the last bullet on the slide, which is experiential. Unfortunately, when we plan things, whatever mode that would be, that would be minimal in terms of working with the senses of children. Alam naman natin when we involve them it should work with all the senses. So we need to plan learning experiences that make them use the senses. Okay, hindi lang siya text format. It has to be activity driven. Okay, kaya kailangan talaga natin ng supervision ng isang adult. Okay, what is also engaging for them is that they use their bodies. When we plan the chunks of activities, let us make sure that we are not just addressing what's academic, because in the curriculum, in most curricula, okay, there's a really strong leaning on the academic. So when we transform the content, we can have there, after this chunk of activity, okay, it's time to stretch, it's time to do this. We can have a video there of them singing or exercising, or they can walk around the house. So we need to balance the intellectual, the physical motor, and then let us not, of course, forget the socio-emotional. Okay, the context, the real context is they are also stressed with all this. Okay, they would be happy. They would be happy, of course, seeing the faces of their classmates. I don't know how that's possible. Even those little chunks of time where they are able to interact because they are in isolation, okay, would give them a burst. Okay, and if I may also share, we are talking about the characteristics of children. I have a friend who's teaching young children, and because of the lockdown and everything, she gave them a project. It was a toy construction project. Of course, the competencies were embedded in that big project. And then there was the presentation time. And everybody was saying, wait, dapat maiksi lang yan, ha? Mga 30 minutes lang ang Zoom meeting nyo sa mga bata, or whatever it is, the face-to-face with 15 or 25 so children. Okay, but they were all excited to share their project. Okay, they're very proud to do that. And believe it or not, I was also surprised. It took 2 hours with everybody 100% engaged, and the parents were the ones saying, we did not think that this could ever happen. No? So what does that mean? Of course, I'm not saying that we engage them for 2 hours. The thing is, when young learners are minds on, hands on, and really hearts on engaged, that's the challenge. How do we plan for those activities? Another thing is, when we transform the content, what we also have to think about is, how do I embed a layer of motivating my students? For example, our books would normally say, read a story and answer the questions. But we need to have another layer. Would a second person perspective work better? For example, diba, magpapabasa ka sa Pilipino, meron kaming kwento. Okay? Maganda, sisimulan natin. Magaling ako magbasa. Kaya ko to, sasagutan ko to. So, embedded within the way that we phrase the activities would be helping the child acknowledge that he can work on these things. Because those are the things that we do, the feedback that we give face-to-face. And now we're not there. We cannot be there. Okay? So let us try to consider all these things. Attention span, short chunks of time, alternating activities to address all the different domains. And let's not forget to ask them how they are. And that little note would really have an impression on them. So in the next slide, we are challenged. How do you really address the diverse realities of our learners? So I hope that this picture or this comic strip would make us really reimagine, okay, how we would plan our learning experiences for this school year. So as we can see there, they are so diverse. And this is where I think the principle or concept of inclusion would come in. No one should be marginalized. So kahit ano pa sila, kahit wala siyang computer, wala. So ano ang paraan? Merong paraan. Marami lang nga tayong ihahanda para sa kanila. Okay. So in the next slide, we will see that I have put a word there in the middle. I would believe that our paradigm about the school, the home, and the learner, when there is a convergence of all these realities and contexts, then the meeting point is bigger. And this is how we can fully address this pandemic. Convergence means meeting point, so that there would be a result or a conclusion. And when we properly look at and address the context of each one, there's no one solution. There would be flexible solutions, but the roles, of course, will be changing. Let's look at the teacher. The teacher's role from before, we have a number, actually multiple roles. We are designers of the curriculum. We deliver instruction. We are cheerleaders. We motivate. We support them. We address all the domains. Okay, yes, we will still be doing that. But what this pandemic is telling us is there is already an altered balance of power, if I should say that. There's an altered balance of power wherein in the regular setup, the teachers would be the sources of the content and the resources, okay? That would be the main drivers. But now, we're turning over some of our roles to the parents. All of the roles I mentioned as our roles would now be the expanding roles of parents. Sure, they will not have to design the curriculum, okay? Unless they opt to homeschool, then they design their own curriculum. But if they remain in our schools, then we have learning packets or whatever it is that we will be sending them. But they will be high on supervision. What we normally do, they will now have to do. That's why the materials have to be well done, so that through the materials, the parents will know what works, how do young children learn, through just by the design of it. So parents would need to be supervising. The scaffolding that teachers do face-to-face, the feedback would now be a big part would be a big part of parents' work. They should know how to scaffold, because it's not, if you try to remember our role as teachers, is there is gradual release of independence in learning, because we teach a lesson, we provide activities until gradually they do it on their own. Okay, parents would need to be doing that, and we need to be giving a lot of information how to do that. Okay, but we do not expect them to be like us teachers, because they didn't study to be teachers. The learner's role also is very different now, because the learning space, for one, okay, is very different, and the learner has to cope that this is my reality, that what is virtual is reality now if we are going to go on online modes. Okay, also to just go back a bit to the role of the school, a lot of the materials that we have to prepare and the resources would have to do with having videos, because young learners, when you talk about phonological awareness for kindergartner students, phonological sounds nga eh. So hindi yan nababasa. Okay, yan ay pinapakinggan. Okay, so we need to craft appropriate materials, whether they have computers or not. There is always a way. Lagay sa flash drive. They take turns at home using that. Okay, so there. So we have the expanding roles of everyone in this pandemic. And in the next slide, even us, okay, as we do our roles, work from home, like now I'm working from home. We started late because of the signal, because of issues, and we will be experiencing this. And that's why we have to be always open-minded, no? May solusyon to. Lahat ng problema may solusyon. And the next slide will show us really in, while this is not a local comic strip, makikita natin, ito po talaga ang realidad. Okay, this is the context that we're working on. And as chaotic as it might look, I believe that if we reimagine the teacher and learner realities and contexts, then we can find a way to make it not this chaotic. Okay, so as I mentioned a while ago, there a routine in the homes would help our learners. How do we communicate that with parents? We need a lot of really materials written down, or we can share resources with them how to make learning from home effective. Okay, so at this point, I would now like to turn you over to Annie so that we can expand more the context we're working in. Okay, Annie.
Thank you, Teacher Nong. I should have told Teacher Nong na, Teacher Nong, let's change our title and not just say reimagining teachers and learners, but say reimagining school leaders, teachers and learners, because I believe this is a very, very crucial time for all schools and therefore a crucial time for school leadership. And I take every opportunity given to me to speak to school leaders and to teachers about how to get through this pandemic, because I'd like to share the steps I took myself as a school leader in helping our school transition to the new normal, as they say. I wrote on this slide, a school survival would greatly depend on its leadership. Okay. Last week, I received news that from friends who are teachers and school directors of many established schools closing. And this is really such a terrible, terrible time. But I think that with the proper school values, the proper, especially school leadership, I think that schools will get through this. Next slide, please. School leaders wear a lot of hats. I know there are a lot of principals listening right now, and you juggle a lot of tasks, you juggle a lot of roles. But upon reflection, I think these are the four roles that are most important in the context of this pandemic. The first is that as the school head, we are the school's primary or main philosopher. And what makes schools really distinct from each other is their philosophy of learning, their way of looking at their learners, their approach to teaching, and their approach to education. So throughout this transition process, as you move to the new normal, it will be very important for the school and for the school administration to really be imbued with the school philosophy and make sure that it's retained, whether whatever alternative learning mode you choose to take for the coming school year. You're also the community cheerleader. Ikaw mismo, you're going through the pandemic at hindi mo rin alam paano mo i-juggle yung chores mo, yung home tasks mo, being a mom or a dad, with running a school or being a teacher. Pero nakasalalay din sa'yo na ikaw ang mag-cheer on sa buong komunidad mo, your faculty, your parents, your students, that we can get through this pandemic. So as Teacher Nong was also suggesting, I like the points that she brought up about taking care of the socio-emotional, hindi lang ng mga bata pero ng mga sarili natin. Because we need this socio-emotional health in order to boost the confidence of the whole community to get through this pandemic. The third is, I'm hoping that all school leaders will know that they are the school's, not just the school's main philosopher, but the school's main curricularist. Later on, I'll be talking about some adjustments that have to be made in your curriculum that are necessary and I guess inevitable this coming school year, and you have to lead that effort as well. And the fourth is, you're the change manager. Everyone will be transitioning No school will remain the same this school year. And you will have to, as in a manner of speaking, shepherd the flock throughout this change. In the next slide are the steps that I think all school leaders should take this coming school year or before the start of the school year. And as I said, these are steps that I have taken myself. The first is to check on your community's well-being. The second is to formulate and carry out a transition plan. And the third is to communicate your plan with your stakeholders. Next slide, please. How do you check on your community's well-being? Unang-una, ang kailangan nyo pong i-check ay ang mga magiging kasangga ninyo sa pag-aalaga ng inyong mga estudyante at yun ay ang faculty at staff ninyo. So the first thing I also did as a school leader was to reach out to our faculty and staff, try to allay all their fears because they had a lot of fears and apprehensions. They may have family members who are frontliners, family members who are COVID patients. They may be fearful of the future of their employment and fearful about their colleagues in the school. So the first step is to check on their well-being and make sure that they are okay. And when they are okay, then we reach out to the rest of the community, the rest of our stakeholders of our school, the parents and the students. Let's be sensitive that some parents may have lost their livelihood. Or again, they may have relatives who are victims or who are frontliners. So it's good to connect with them and try to empathize. And then we reach out to our students. I'd like to share what our little school did. We had our guidance team, our values formation coaches reach out to kids, especially those that we know were already at risk the past school year or in recent school year. So we had them reach out to these kids first. Going through the pandemic is traumatic. In addition, they're going through a lot of changes. Some families have never been this together for a very long time. And so that's a big adjustment to have your parents hovering over you, for example, if you're a teenager, or for some of the children not being able to go out and see their friends or even play in the yard. That's a big adjustment. So we had the guidance team reach out to them, give them a call. We also scheduled online Zoom kumustahan. So the class advisors who I remember teacher Nong making a point about the teachers being familiar with your kids. So let's have their class advisors who have known them for a year or more than a year be the ones to check on them so that they're already familiar and they feel safe with that teacher. So we had them check on the kids. For our preschoolers, for our K, we had them do circle time, sort of like a continuation or a celebration of routines in school that they enjoyed. Have them sing together or just say hi to their friends and they enjoyed it. The third is to utilize social media. Okay, so I'm sure all of your schools have Facebook community pages. So we started posting, or you can start posting quarantine tips, how to get through the quarantine, or messages of support, messages of compassion and strength through this whole situation. So those are little things that you can do, but they will help you check on your community and make sure your community is okay. After this step, next slide, please. As a school leader, I think it's imperative that we formulate and carry out a transition plan. And actually, at the beginning of the community quarantine, I wrote a paper with an educational technology consultant, Reagan Austria, about how to transition schools to online learning. And I'm trying to adapt that framework also to transitioning to any kind of alternative delivery or learning mode. And these are the steps that I think we should follow in carrying out the transition plan. The first is to revisit your school's philosophy. The second is to determine the role of your stakeholders. The third is to assess your school community's readiness for the transition or for any kind of change. The fourth is to determine the best learning delivery mode given your school's context and given the context of your learners. Adjusting the curriculum coverage, and lastly, determining a system for evaluating. and tweaking your approach. So the first step in carrying out this transition plan, in formulating and carrying it out, is to revisit your school's philosophy. Next slide, please. In revisiting your school's philosophy, this is where school leaders will have to wear their philosopher's hat. And we go back to who we are. Sino ba kayo? Sino ba yung school nyo? Ano ba yung vision, mission, goals, yung VMG nyo? What defines you? What are your non-negotiables? For example, does your school believe in 21st century skills? At ito talaga yung core ng curriculum ninyo. So that should be a non-negotiable. Do you believe that the best way to learn is through collaboration? So whether you do online or offline as your delivery mode, then collaboration should still be present in your curriculum. What is your view of the learner? How should the learner be in this very extraordinary time? Should they be learning the whole day? Should they be learning with the help of their parents? How should they be relating to their teachers, and how should their teachers be reaching out to them through this whole school year? We define these things that define us in turn, and by doing so, we revisit our school's philosophy and identity. And then we decide that throughout this whole transition process, we will keep this philosophy and identity intact. Next slide, please. The second step is to determine the role of your stakeholders. Tulad nga ng nabanggit ko, yung admin, tayo talagang ang generals dito sa army, kumbaga. Tayo ang nagli-lead ng change. Kaya ang role talaga ng administration ay una, i-assess ang resources ng school dahil key talagang survival ng lahat ng school ngayon. I-assess yung resources natin, mag-reallocate ng resources natin, anong mabibigay natin sa technology. For example, if we're considering transitioning to online learning, ano yung pwedeng resources natin na pwede natin ibigay na ayuda para sa mga staff natin na nangangailangan kung meron man tayong resources na ganoon. Ang administration din ang nagde-decide how much training our faculty will be needing, and in turn, how much training our parents and our students will be needing for whatever alternative learning mode we choose. Sa teachers naman, kailangan na ang role nila ngayong panahon na to ay maging open-minded, dahil talagang tulad nga ng sinabi ni Teacher Nong, ang daming pagbabago sa role natin bilang teachers, dahil hindi lang tayo magtuturo whether online or offline, tayo din ay makikipag-ugnayan ng mas sa mga magulang ng mga estudyante natin, dahil kumbaga ay di naman teaching assistant pero actually parang ka-team teach natin ng mga magulang ngayong taon. So kailangan ay lagi tayo nagkipag-communicate with them. If you are going into online learning, then your teachers also have to be willing and open-minded to learning online learning tools and online learning strategies in order to see this school year through. What about your parents? What is the role of parents in this extraordinary time? Like the teachers, they also have to be open-minded and willing to go through change. And the parents, as Teacher Nong also mentioned, will now take on tasks that they weren't trained for. They're not teachers. And that's the reason why they enrolled with you. They don't want to take on teaching their kids. But because of circumstances, they will have to learn a few teaching strategies and learn to take part to a greater extent in the education of their children. And of course, the students, anong role din nila dito? If we're doing online learning, there has to be capacity building for our students, not just in terms of digital literacy, but in terms of digital citizenship, being responsible online. Next slide, please. The third step in the transition plan is to assess your school community's readiness. And this readiness actually is parang harder if you're going to do online, if you're deciding to do the online learning mode. Dahil kailangan mong i-determine yung readiness nila in terms of these three things basically. What are their devices at home? How is their connectivity? If their internet always drops, their signal always drops, that will be a problem. And how is their tech literacy? In the next slide, these are parts of a pretty massive tech survey that we did in our school, where we asked them a lot of questions, and there were a lot of details, including not just how many gadgets do you have at home, but how many children are going to do online learning, so that we could synchronize the schedule so that siblings don't have to use the gadgets and their internet at the same time. So it's a pretty complicated, actually, task. So this slide, you'll see that we asked them about their technology proficiency level in terms of basic computer operations, like manipulating documents, attaching and sharing documents, if they have experience with online learning. So pinarate namin yung mga sarili nila dahil alam din namin, hindi lang dahil alam namin na sila yung magiging ang kasangga namin sa pag-i-educate ng mga bata ngayong taon. Sila yung team teacher. In addition to that, inaalam din namin ano yung scope ng tech training na kailangang maibigay sa mga parents ngayong taon. Next slide, please. So in addition, sinasabi na rin namin na ito yung mga gagamitin namin na online platforms. This is actually the first page of, the first part of 3 pages, because we're using a lot of apps and tools, online tools this year. So pinaparate din namin anong alam niyo sa Google Docs. For example, this is the Google Suite, Google Classroom, Google Meet, Google Forms, Google Sites. Nung ginagawa din namin tong survey na to, paramount in our minds was that we would include apps and tools that were free, because we didn't also want the parents. So we wanted to be sensitive to the parents' current financial situation. So we didn't want to go buying a lot of apps, or for them to go buying a lot of apps, or even buy a new gadget. So if we could do adjustments in the scheduling, so they don't have to buy a gadget, and do adjustments in the use of the apps, so that we really maximize free apps and free sites and free resources, then we'll do that. Next slide, please. Aside from the technological proficiency, it's also very important to have a learning area at home. And that area has to be noise-free, organized, conducive to learning. And when the kids are there, they have to know that it's their learning corner. When they're there, they're going to do their offline learning activities, or that's where they see their teachers and the rest of their classmates in their online classes. It doesn't have to be an entire room, and it doesn't have to be, fully decked with all the materials that they'll be needing. It could be just a table and a chair. But it's very good, and it sets the tone for learning if you designate such a space for your child. In assessing your learning area at home, you also have to indicate whether there are other members of your household, maybe an older brother, an older sister, a yaya, a lolo, a lola, who can help your child, not only with tech troubleshooting, but with learning itself. Because most of us are working from home, but in the event that the parents go back to their normal work conditions and physically leave the house, who will help your children while learning at home? Also, we also surveyed the accessibility of physical materials for learning, because that's also very important. Whether you're doing online or offline, there will be a need for basic school supplies. Next slide, please. The next step in the transition plan is to determine the best learning delivery mode. And I will talk about this more in the last part of our presentation. So right now, it's either offline or online. Or some schools are even thinking of blended learning at some point, doing online initially, and then at some point in the school year, when it's already safe to do physical classes, they will do blended learning. Some schools are also preparing for face-to-face. In fact, I heard that some big private schools have already said when they're coming back. So that means that they're ready for face-to-face classes. If you're a school leader and you'd like to prepare for face-to-face, that means coming up with a very detailed and comprehensive school health protocol. How are you going to enforce frequent hand washing, physical distancing, and how are you going to ask all the families enrolled with you to be honest with their data about traveling and who they've been in contact with, because that's very important for us to avoid any COVID cases in our schools. But there are also schools that are in places which report no COVID cases. So they will have no problem this school year because they will be doing face-to-face. But even if they don't have any cases or have a minimal number of cases, it's still safe for the whole country, I think, to have these new safety protocol in place. Pag tinignan nyo yung rules ng DOH, actually, napaka-detalyado niya na meron silang recommendations about classrooms not being air-conditioned, for the electric fans to be unidirectional, para ma-predict yung patterns of ventilation. At meron ding rules about the number of students who should be in a classroom at any given time. So these are preparations that you also have to think about as a school leader, even though we're not sure when it will be. Okay? And if you are choosing to transition to online learning, you should establish a tech integration team within your faculty. Next slide, please. Okay, sabi ko nga, ang isa pa nating hat ay curricularist. And this year, because we have well, you might choose to have a compressed school year and start in August and still end around March or April. Or if you're planning to start earlier in July, kahit na July ka pa mag-start, there will be some adjustment of curriculum coverage. Why? Because there is no substitute for the number of learning hours that we used to do face-to-face. So the kids, if you're choosing online, cannot be online, cannot be in front of a screen for 6 hours, the same way that they were when we were doing school last school year. So there has to be a paring down of your curriculum to the most essential competencies. When you're thinking about your curriculum, you should also think about how you're going to carry out assessment. Reagan, Austria, and I also wrote a paper recently on carrying out online assessment, because some teachers and school leaders are having a hard time thinking about this because they're stuck in the idea that assessment is equivalent to grading, and that the only way to assess is really a pen and paper exam. So sinasabi nila, Teacher Annie, paano yun? Edi pwede sila mag-cheat easily pag nasa bahay lang sila. So there has to be a complete shift on how you look at assessment. Assessment is really looking at a student's growth, a student's progress over a given amount of time on learning a skill, on obtaining knowledge, and looking at it so that we know as a teacher how we can help them achieve more growth in that area. So that's really the essence of assessment. It's not assigning a letter grade or a numerical grade. It's helping our students grow and learn. And then if you're adjusting the curriculum in such a way this coming school year, school leaders and teachers also have to think about how this adjustment will affect succeeding school years. So are we doing a bridge program in the summer? If we're adjusting it this way, na kinokontian natin yung coverage, hindi dapat kailangan din nating i-adjust yung mga succeeding school years. Next slide, please. I borrowed this from the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan of the DepEd because they have already pared down the national curriculum for K-12 to the MELCs, or the most essential learning competencies. And you know, the parameters for choosing these MELCs, I think, can be adopted by all private schools. They chose the MELCs because these are aligned with national standards or frameworks. They connect the content to higher concepts across content areas. They are applicable to real-life situations, so they're authentic. They're important for students to acquire even if a student drops out from school. And they cannot be expected to be ordinarily learned by students if not taught in school. If you read the Basic Education LCP, you'll also note that the DepEd also recognized the fact that the K-12 curriculum is in fact congested. So it was also a good exercise to look at the competencies again and to identify which among these are really, really most essential, especially given our situation. Next slide, please. Okay, and the last step is to determine a system of evaluating and tweaking your approach. And because we're going into something very, very new, dapat nga ilalagay ko daily daily ang pag-evaluate. Pero you have to sit down as a faculty and talk about how your alternative delivery mode for learning went this week, for the month, and then quarterly, and then make adjustments really swiftly. This also means that there has to be an open feedback system between parents and teachers because we're working more closely, whether it's online or offline, this coming school year. At importante na nagsasabihan tayo kung anong pwede natin gawin para magtulungan. Okay? When we're evaluating the approach we're using this school year, we also have to think about what tools helped us in pushing for the kind of teaching and learning that our school espouses. Was your LMS too clunky? Were you using apps that were highly motivating for your students, and we should continue to use this? Again, you should also look at your community's ease of adoption. So are there parents that are having a hard time, for example, with certain online learning tools? Then maybe we should give them a refresher on training, or reach out to them individually and ask them how we can help them. Because if the parents are having a hard time adopting your new way of learning, this will affect how your learners also adopt this new way of learning. And the next is how else can you help your community? Okay, so throughout the year, yung pag-check natin sa well-being ng community natin, hindi pwedeng minsan lang yan nung start, tapos pa nag-start na yung school year, go back to normal na tayo. We're never going back to normal actually. They keep calling it new normal. So I guess that's our new normal. But in this new situation, it is imperative on school leaders and teachers to always check on the well-being, on the socio-emotional health of everybody else. So though we are physically apart because we need to do social distancing, this is really a time that we need to band together and maintain closer ties with our school community. Next slide, please. And then the last step for school leaders is to communicate your plan with your stakeholders. It's good to do an initial presentation of your plans to your faculty, get their feedback. The PTA also get their feedback, but more importantly, get the support of the faculty and the PTA before you cascade this to the rest of the parents. You should prepare clear and comprehensive memos. I've never written memos this long, except during this time. I really had to talk about everything from, because we're transitioning to online learning, I've had to talk about our approach to learning, our learning model, the gadgets, the screen time, and answer a bunch of questions fielded by the parents, and that's important. And in addition, you also want to address the questions in person by conducting town hall meetings. You can do town hall meetings for your school so that the parents can ask you directly, why are you doing this? This is connected to my last bullet, which is making yourself accessible. Because during this time, again, as I said, this is the time for leadership. Your parents and your students will want to see their school principal very present, very definitive, very certain about their school's future. So you have to assure them that the school can get through this pandemic and that you know that your plan for learning will work. Next slide, please. So, ang huling part ng presentation namin ni Teacher Nong ay tungkol sa learning delivery modes. At naglagay lang ako ng 3 dito na maaari ninyong pagpilian. Although marami pang permutations ang bawat isa na to. Yung una ay ang online distance learning, which is teaching and learning that happens over the internet. Offline distance learning, where teaching and learning is achieved without students attending physical classes. And blended learning, which requires gathering the class in person in a physical school, and then having, so you can have your students attend classes for example 2 days in a week, and then the rest of the week they stay home and they do learning activities via an online platform. So their teachers are still supervising them all throughout. Next slide. Online distance learning means that you will employ a learning management system and various online learning apps and websites. And my God, your mind will be blown away by the number of learning apps and websites out there. At actually, maraming na-develop during this pandemic because everyone is trying to make learning easier. When you employ online distance learning this coming school year, it should be a mix of both synchronous and asynchronous activities. As I mentioned earlier, we cannot have the children be in front of the screen all the time doing synchronous learning. So there will be a time, there will be a well thought of schedule where they will have time in front of the screen to see their teacher, connect with their teacher, and connect with their classmates, because this also allows for socialization during this extraordinary time. And then there are breaks structured in so that they have a break from looking at the screen. And then there is also a chunk of time during their daily schedule where they do asynchronous activities. Asynchronous activities are teacher-determined activities that are done offline. Pero actually, yung kids ngayon, they can also do collaborative activities, do group work, and they might decide to use online tools to do it. They might want to meet with their group via Zoom or Google Meet. So sometimes the asynchronous activities will also require online tools. So a good school will think about this daily schedule very carefully, how to structure a good block of time for synchronous work, breaks, and then asynchronous works, and then give recommendations to the families on what else to do. Sabi nga ni Teacher Nong, there has to be physical activities. You can schedule a time where they can do one-on-one with the guidance counselor just to do check-ins. There can be music activities, or there can be things that family activities they can do at home, and the school can also recommend that. So a rich online distance learning program will require a school to think about all of those details. Next slide, please. Things that we should remember in tech integration. I got this from Regan, Austria. Just yesterday, I listened to his lecture, and I included this slide last night because I think they're important. When you're doing online learning this school year, it's basically tech integration. Okay? At alam ko, maraming schools ang nag-tech integration ng matagal na. Hindi lang ganito ka-massive. And when we're doing that, we have to think about these things. The first is to identify your intention for technology. Be deliberate. Gagamitin ko yung technology na to dahil gusto kong ma-manage yung klase ko. Tapos gusto ko, nandito na rin sa learning management system na to, nakalagay na yung homework, matutulungan ako mag-grade, makikita ko kung nag-chat yung mga estudyante ko. So kapag na-identify mo yung intention na yan, you don't have to look at 20 different things. You just have to look at applications and technologies that answer your need. The second is to create a basic set of tech tools. Let's not confuse ourselves, and let's not confuse our parents by giving them a list of 20 apps that they need to learn for the school year. Identify nyo lang ano yung mga gusto kong gawin sa school year na to or sa klase ko ngayong taon. This is connected to the next bullet, which is one tech tool can be used in a variety of ways. There are apps that can be, first, motivate my students. Second, help them express themselves. Third, can do a survey that can be converted into a graph for me later on. So if you find those versatile tools, baka you just need to learn a couple for the school year, like maybe 5 tools for a teacher. And that means hindi ka masyadong mahihirapan din as a teacher. At hindi rin mahihirapan yung mga magulang at mga estudyante mo. I like this point, design activities at the lowest level of access. Some schools, when they heard that, oh, we all have to transition to online learning, inisip agad, anong bibilin ko na LMS? Anong bibilin ko na apps? Saan ako magsusubscribe? Sa totoo lang, ang daming free tools. At sa totoo lang, hindi naman lahat ng tao sa school mo ay kasing equipped ng pinapangarap mo sa school mo. So, in your family tech survey, find out what is truly the situation in terms of access, and design learning activities around the lowest level of access. And as I said, you can actually access our paper about authentic assessments online using this link. Next slide, please. Okay, who is the tech integration team? It's a faculty team, and these are their basic tasks: to screen educational technology, to do tech troubleshooting, to help teachers. Hindi naman yung sila yung laging tatakbuhan. Siguro sa unang beses, pero tutulungan din nila yung mga teachers na mag-troubleshoot, to spearhead training for tech, to develop a school manual for technology use, because we're also equipping ourselves with these tools, not just for this school year, but it might also be necessary, and we should be ready for another, not naman another pandemic, for another extraordinary year. And we should already know what to do by then. They will also help generate ideas for creative uses of technology, and also evaluate the way that online learning is taking place in the school. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So, yung pinag-usapan natin ay sa online. Paano naman yung offline? Pag binasa nyo rin yung Basic Ed Learning Continuity Plan, may description doon ng DepEd tungkol sa offline na distance learning. And it's basically giving if you've assessed that your school community really cannot do online, but you want learning to continue through your school, then you are going to put together an offline distance learning option for this school year. And that means preparing printed material gathered in learning packets and modules. I've seen some preschools being very creative about their learning packets and putting in the packets art materials and other materials that the kids can use for crafts activities, for cutting, for fine motor, that they think will make a kindergarten curriculum at home more fun. So you can also add those things to your learning packets. Your learning packets might have textbooks and might have pieces of literature that you'd like your students to read during this school year. An offline distance learning program doesn't mean that you're completely technology free, because you can actually suggest that they access educational videos. Your school can make itself relevant and useful by making your own videos and making it available on Facebook, because it seems Facebook is the most accessible to the whole universe. And then also employing educational TV and radio. Ang dami-daming resources din on the web. And as a school, this is what you can offer your parents. If they re-enroll with you, you will be the ones to curate this content and scour the web for resources that they can use, and then give a list of these materials or these websites or online resources that they can use for every unit of learning that you've also determined. Next slide. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Kapag mag-offline delivery mode kayo, nandiyan na yung materials, nasa kamay nyo na. It just requires your faculty to work collaboratively, to sit down together, and that's, of course, metaphorically, sitting down together, gathering all the materials that our teacher made, that your school has come up with, and then figuring out how, through those materials that you've come up with, adding an inventory of other learning resources that you have at hand, whether they be print, video, or websites that you just found, creating a curriculum around it. Okay? So I want to deliver this pared down curriculum of our school. Ano yung existing ko na materials that can help me deliver that? That can explain this curriculum to a parent and help him, a mother and a father, deliver that curriculum to their child. Okay, teach that curriculum to their child. So don't be scared about it. Actually, whether online or offline, you already have an existing curriculum. Kailangan lang siyang i-adjust in terms of content, at kailangan din siyang pag-isipan paano siya i-deliver kung ang teacher ay parent or kung ay teacher ay nasa screen lang. Next slide, please. Okay, ano naman yung blended learning? As I said, it's a mix of physical and online learning. And if you decide to do that, please carefully think about having a staggered schedule. So for example, your grade 1 will only come in every Monday, for example lang to. your grade 2 classes will only come in every Tuesday, and then the entire class cannot go to school together. So kunyari morning, half of this section, sa hapon, half of the other half of the section. To have a staggered schedule so that you can still respect social distancing rules, and you can limit the number of people in your building and the number of people that your students are coming in contact with. Again, if you're doing blended learning, at some point in the school year, there has to be a strict school health protocol that's sufficiently disseminated to your school community. Make sure your teachers are safe. Sila ang una nating kapakanan nilang una nating isipin, is it safe for them to go back to work? And then, of course, get the required parent consent for your kids to go back to physical school. Although, let me share that in our school, most of our parents have expressed that they don't want to go back to physical school. They'd like to be online. Next slide, please. So, Teacher Nong and I, oops, nawala yung ano, it should be learn at home with USAID. Okay. So if you go to Facebook and if you type learn at home with USAID, you'll see that they've put together a pretty good list of free resources that parents and teachers can use for home learning. And one of those resources is a video that our school helped develop with Adarna and Raya helped develop. It's like an online preschool that for the schools here that have K can use. Okay, there are more than 20 episodes that you can use for your preschoolers. Can we play the video?
Disabled participants. Great screen. Okay, we're just waiting our host to enable screen sharing so we can play the video. Sure. Okay, I think the audio is not working right now. Okay, anyway, this video is available in YouTube. Okay, and
yes, you just have to put Escuelero and it will come out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we can also mention that in our when we post this video online. Okay, Thank you, Teacher Annie and
Thank
Teacher Long.
you.
We just have a few questions for the Q&A. All right, our first question is for Teacher Nong. I think the first two questions are for Teacher Nong. You're free to answer, of course, Teacher Annie. The first question is, how should schools assist or support preschoolers with online or offline distance learning when parents of these very young children have to go to work or go back to work away from home, who are left with their nannies or yayas or aging grandparents?
Okay. So, as mentioned, Annie showed the tool that was used for a survey. So, syempre, aalamin natin sino pa ang ibang, hindi lang naman kasi magulang ang pwedeng mag-supervise, di ba? So, ang maganda sa sistema ng maraming pamilya natin, may extended family tayo. No? So, kailangan lang makahanap sino ba yung pwedeng mag-supervise. Pwede kasing lola, lolo, tita, tito. Pag yung lang, for example, yaya or kailangan lang natin siguraduhin may kakayanan sila at nauunawaan nila ang mga ibibigay natin. Dahil sa mas maraming bagay, it's easier to learn than to unlearn. No? So, iba kasi ang paraan sa batang, lalo halimbawa pag tuturuan pa lang natin magbasa, no? So sana makahanap lang tayo basta kahit isang tao, isang adult, kahit hindi regular, alternate days, humingi tayo ng tulong sa kapamilya natin. So so we have really to face the fact that young children, especially the kindergarten or grade 1, cannot be autonomous. Kailangan ng supervision.
Okay. All right.
Sana makahanap po tayo.
All right. Thank you for that, Teacher Nong. I think there's a follow-up question here actually related to that. What if the parents are non-readers, especially for those families which are really struggling? Would this mean an extra effort on the part of the teacher, on the part of the school, to really go out of their way to assist the student? Like if the parents are non-readers or they do not have parents at all, they just have guardians.
Yes, that is a reality. So we then have to look further. Anong next step? Sino na? So that's when the teacher would have to really stretch possible avenues. Magchat-chat ba sila? Sana meron siyang accessibility na pwede silang mag-chat sa Facebook. And then we can also expand and look at the community. Of course, we have to be very, very careful with the health risk. But in some instances, they look at communities, neighborhoods. Sino doon ang maaring makatulong? Kasi kailangan nasa puso talaga natin ngayon bayanihan. Ano? But of course, that would all come with risks. But let's move one step further, wala sa pamilya, sino sa kamag-anak, sino sa komunidad, sino sa guro, sa mga guro. Ang guro ba niya, pwedeng gawin yon, no? So mas mag-exert talaga ng effort lang si teacher para merong paraan na mag-uusap sila or mabibigyan niya ng instruction. At saka kahit kung hindi nga literate ang magulang, hanap na lang tayo ng iba pa na maaaring makatulong.
Teacher Nong, baka pwedeng, sinabi mo nga yung bayanihan sa kayong sa community, pwedeng mag-come together yung communities ngayon and maybe there's a parent among a set of parents in a barangay na reader at pwedeng siya ang in charge sa reading instruction ng a group of kids. So ngayon, kailangan, yun nga yung irony of it all dahil kailangan ng social distancing. So physically apart tayo, but because there's a pandemic, we have to be more together. We have to be more concerted in our efforts. Especially yan, ang hirap-hirap magturo, magbasa. So you really cannot ask any parent to do it without training. So let's look for ways.
Okay. Thank you, Teacher Nong and Teacher Annie. Okay, the next question, either of you can answer this question. For kindergarten, the very young ones, kindergarten and first graders, do you think teachers and parents should focus more on developing social skills and other essential skills for the growth of the child than giving academic tasks?
Okay. So primarily, yes, socio-emotional, because this is extraordinary situations. No? So socio-emotional, yes. But I think it should not just be socio-emotional. No? We can expand that because learning opportunities can develop other domains as well. So pwede namang, ang importante yung konteksto kung paano siya natututo, na dapat hindi siya masyadong taxing para sa bata, no? Na hindi natin pipilitin, dapat game form, yun yung challenge eh. Even the teachers, when we were teaching kinder and grade 1, di ba? Pag nasa harap tayo ng klase, dapat laro lahat. Hanggat maaari, may kwento, merong laro. I agree that it is not just academic. Especially in these times, hindi lang yan. Marami pang pwedeng matutunan kasama socio-emotional, pero naniniwala rin ako na hindi lang socio-emotional. Kasi buo ang bata. Maraming domains yan eh. Socio-emotional, physical, motor. Ayan.
Saka ang daming learning na pwedeng mangyari sa bahay. Ang daming math and science sa cooking. Diba? Sa chores. Pero syempre hindi nyo naman siya ituturo na ito math to anak. Ito science to anak. Ito chemistry. Pero parang how wonderful if parents would spend the time to converse with their children and to answer their questions and try to elucidate yun nga concepts that they will later on find out are actually math and science concepts when you're doing things around the house. Sayang kasi yung learning all around you.
Parang, may I just add that
Yes.
While young children at our home, these are really very teachable moments.
Yeah.
Kaya lang, yeah. So, but of course, kasi ang lente natin, guro tayo. So nakikita natin how teachable it is. Ang magulang, syempre iba naman ang lente ng magulang. So hindi niya yung nakikita na how fun learning can occur. So it would help if again, schools would reach out, come up with something that they can read, watch a video, send them resources, na pwede nilang makita how an ordinary day, for example, can become enriching. Kasi pwede naman talaga. Kaya na nga, dahil hindi nga sila teacher, hindi nila ganun tignan. Pero tayo bilang guro, grabe ang dami nating naiisip. Kumakain lang, ang daming pwedeng pag-usapan. Ang daming pwedeng 21st century skills na ipasok. Kasi nga guro tayo. So paano natin yan maipapaabot sa magulang? Through, for example, a brochure with examples, send them resources.
Okay. All right. And then for the next question, Teacher Annie, we're now in the GCQ eventually. The GCQ may be lifted, so we'll be out of the quarantine phase. But with the increasing number of COVID cases, and we may not be flattening the curve soon, and school will start in July or August. As a school leader, would you recommend to allow contact lessons or face-to-face lessons for K-3 students for those who cannot afford mobile devices or gadgets and internet service?
Oh, I actually am very, because we're talking about our kids and our teachers' health and safety. So kung ako nga, pwede lang buong school year, walang face-to-face. Dahil walang kasiguraduhan ng vaccine, at kailangan ay talagang alam na alam niyo yung health protocol na kailangang sundan. So I would suggest na hindi. But if you don't have, so are you talking about houses without homes without computers?
Yeah, because this is online learning would be easy for those who have access.
Then therefore, your school should, if you still want to be relevant as a school, then you should develop offline learning options. Pero ibig sabihin din nun ay, oo sana, kaakibat din ng offline na yon ay pangungumusta, ng teacher sa bata at sa magulang kung kumusta na siya dun sa pag-aaral at kumusta na rin sila socio-emotionally. At pagtulong din ng teacher, ano pang tulong yung pwede kong ibigay sa inyo para sa pagkatuto ng anak ninyo. So kung kahit walang computer, pwede pa rin.
All right, thank you. And then for Teacher Nong, you mentioned earlier, we are turning over some of our roles to our parents, and we may need a high supervision among parents. Do you think should there be like a seminar for parents, or what kind of seminar or training should we provide to our parents if we expect them to be high in supervision while the students are at home?
I would say it's not a one-shot thing, but it's something ongoing that our parents would really need, because they need to be supported all throughout the year. So from the start, like for now, I think you will be investigating the realities of your learners' homes, no? Para makapagplano tayo, no? Ano ba ang pinakaakma? So diyan pa lang, pwede na tayong magsimula sa kanila. It's a gradual. What I'm thinking is, if we are going offline, as what Teacher Annie mentioned, merong learning packets, I believe that parents would need teaching, supporting packets or supporting learners packets. That would be easy to handle, easy to read. That is, if they are readers, because we have instances na, or in formats that they can understand. Palagay ko yung iba naman, hindi lahat, no? Yung ibang parents ay willing talaga. Willing sila malaman paano, pero wala silang kaalaman. So, all throughout the year, we can be sending something. Hindi ko alam kung maganda siguro meron tayong material or resource, and then I don't think it can be a Zoom seminar, something like that. There can just be a follow-up where you can meet and then questions can be clarified. Ang dapat lang, katulad ng sabi ni Teacher Annie, we are accessible. At any point, we are accessible para alam nila na, ay, hindi talaga ako nag-iisa. Sama-sama kami dito sa ginagawa na.
Okay, all right. We have 3 more questions here. For Teacher Annie, what do you think are the top 3 non-negotiables from a school leader's perspective when your clients in school are, very young children?
Ang non-negotiable ko ay learning should be fun. So, ayan ang hindi naman pinipressure, pero sinabi ko na sa preschool faculty namin, saka sa early grades, na fun tayo na school nung we were physically present, kailangan fun pa rin sa online. So, like last week, nagpa-talent show kami sa iba naming early graders. So, nagsasayaw sila in front of the screen, and that was so cute. It was so them. Kasi they don't really care if they're just in front of the computer. The second non-negotiable is to reach out to them, to look after them socio-emotionally. Yun talaga yung super important ngayon. Sabi nga ng ibang psychologists, yung ibang kids, kala natin naglalaro pa rin kasi sila, nanonood ng favorite TV show sila, so parang normal lang. Pero actually, pag kinumusta mo sila, bothered sila by the abnormality of things. And the fact that they're just at home and they can't really go out and they don't understand why. So it's very important to look after their socio-emotional well-being.
All right, thank you. And another question here, how can we utilize, I'm not that familiar with this because I'm not teaching preschool. How can we utilize name tracing or writing activities for preschoolers? Either of you, perhaps Teacher Nong?
Name tracing.
It says here, name tracing or writing activities for preschoolers.
Oo. I think, of course, pag ginagawa kasi natin yan sa classroom, may worksheets tayo. Pero pag ginagawa ko yan before I start, may marami akong pakwela kung paano gawin yung strokes. Halimbawa, bakit 3 lines lang? So, meron akong make-believe na may crocodile dun sa taas na kaya dapat wag lumampas dun yung lines, etc. So, at meron din sa baba. At meron ng estudyante ko, nag-drawing siya, nagsulat ng pangalan niya, may crocodile siya drawing dun sa spaces. So, sobrang concrete talaga sila. So, I think it's possible. It's possible, but it shouldn't be something boring na kasi pag binigay mo lang yung worksheets na yan, ano ba yan? No? So dapat may instructions din, no? Kung paano niya gagawin, instruction dun sa magpapagawa, yung mga strokes din kasi, but I think that it's possible. It's possible. Kahit naman kasi, feeling ko maligsing instruction lang yan sa kung meron silang telepono, di ba? Recorded sa FB Messenger, pwede namang gamitin yung mga ilang bagay na gano'n, no? So basta, hindi kasi kami nagkakalayo ni Teacher Annie sa paniniwala na dapat masaya matuto. So, writing can be boring, but we can make it fun.
Yeah, in connection to that, do you think it's acceptable to, in this case, where we have this global pandemic, do you think it's acceptable to forego assessment for preschoolers or very young students?
Again, you should look at how you define assessment. Kasi I think nga, when you say assessment, people are saying that it's grading. It's assessment for grading. Assessment is really, yun nga, looking at how a child is progressing in terms of learning a skill, learning a concept. And then you're looking at that because you want to know how you can help that child finally learn that skill, master that concept. How else you can scaffold the learner. Yun ang purpose ng assessment. So if we look at it that way, ano yung mga ways na pwede ko pang matulungan yung anak ko makasulat ng pangalan niya ng mas mahusay o ng mas masaya? Kung ganun yung tingin mo sa assessment, it's not a problem.
Okay. May I add?
Yeah. Yes, teacher, no?
Tingnan natin kasi mabuti yung salitang assessment. Galing siya sa salitang asidere. And asidere means sitting beside. No, that's what the source of that word is. It's sitting beside. And I think if paradigm shift din to, it's a paradigm shift for everyone. That assessment is not a paper and pencil test or a page where I can see the names written in 3 lines, blue, red, blue, dapat hindi siya lumampas, then I'll give an A or what. It's sitting beside so that they get there, and it's the process. Parang, di ba, yung formative assessment then, we watch where they are, so we have that so that we can assist them move forward. If we don't assess, I have no way of finding out how they can move forward kasi ay nandito pa lang siya. It's just a matter of saying, nasan ka na? O paano kita tulungan pumunta sa next step? That is assessment. That is sitting beside and coaching the child for whatever, whether intellectual, cognitive, physical, socio-emotional. Nasan ka na? Okay?
All right. And for our last question, how do we evaluate the learning of pupils, especially online classes, knowing that their parents are helping their kids in answering the evaluation tools? Or parents may be
again that's attaching an idea that is identified with pen and paper assessment to online assessment, two very different things. We should be looking at the affordances or the features of the new online learning environment and design assessments according to that. At ang dami-daming pwedeng ipagawa, pwedeng collaborative task, pwede pa rin magpa-performance task, pero kailangan ding kaligtaan yung idea na, ay, nandyan yung nanay at tatay niya, tinutulungan siya. Kailangan mo yung, kung teacher ka, kailangan mong kalimutan yon. Kasi kung kilala mo yung bata, alam mo rin yung mga kaya niyang gawin. At yun ang i-assess mo.
At saka siguro kasama rin yan sa impormasyon na bibigay natin sa mga magulang. Ano ba, how do we view this learning episode during this pandemic? With the school behind it, with the parent supervision, with us trusting that the child would truly learn. No, ano yung role ng magulang? Because if they don't help us see the whole picture, we cannot be effective teachers. So kasama siguro yon sa ipapaabot natin sa magulang na Siyempre, kahit ano namang pineke mo, paano mo matuturuan, pineke mo eh. O di alam ko, marunong na siya magsulat. Eh makikita ko rin naman yan sa later outputs niya, di ba? So there's no sense in faking things during this time. Parang we also have to have that trust if we orient them properly. We are in this together, so let's help the child move forward. Let's just look at the real picture of everything. Para ngayon.
All right. Thank you, Teacher Nong and Teacher Annie. Before we end this webinar, any last few words from the two of you?
Ang last few words ko ay don't panic. Yan like ko sinasabi sa lahat na nakaus kong principal saka teacher. As Teacher Nong earlier said, there's a solution to every problem. So let's not panic and let's remember that we are not in this alone.
So ako may kaugnayan din sa sinabi ni Annie. Let's embrace it. Let's no longer resist it. Let's befriend the enemy. May naisip lang ako nang sinabi kasi ni Teacher Annie na lahat ng problema may solusyon. Alam niyo po, yung lahat ng anak ko, grown up na sila ngayon. Pero yung kinder, yun yung naririnig nila lagi sa teacher nila. Lahat, pag iiyak na kasi sila, yun ang sinasabi ng teacher nila sa kinder. Oh, ba't kayo iiyak? Lahat ng problema may solusyon. So nagulat din ako how they adapt that because they hear it. At sinasabi niya sa kaklase niyang umiiyak, ba't ka umiiyak? Eh, lahat ng problema may solusyon. So see how empowering it is when we model. So tama, yakapin lang natin to. Let's not resist it. Let's not fight it. Tulong-tulong. And the last thing I'd like to share to add is when we reimagine all of this, the teacher, the learner, the school administrator, we actually reshape our paradigms. Iba na yung tingin natin sa maraming bagay. Katulad nakita natin sa assessment, kailangan din tayo mag-iba ng paradigm. So, we just reshape our paradigms and dun sa convergence ng tatlo kanina, yung meeting niya, dun tayo makaka-deliver ng pinaka-effective. Yan.
All right. Thank you very much, Teacher Nong and Teacher Annie. Earlier, actually, I saw a comment from one of our participants. It's a common phrase. It takes a village to educate a child, indeed. Help is around, so don't panic. Okay. Thank you again, Teacher Nong and Teacher Annie. Next week will be our webinar series for grades 4 to 10, especially for our junior high school teachers and principals. And that will be from June 8 to 11 in 10 subject areas. And anyway, the information is available in our Facebook page and in our website for our upcoming webinars next week. Thank you again. Thank you, everyone. You all have a good day and stay safe always. Thank you, Teacher Nong, Teacher Annie.
Thank you.
Thank you also.